Welcome back to CBM Calling on Tuesday. We are at show, John, what number show are we at? Is it 94? 95? 94 sounds about right to you? All right, we're going to listen. Michael Bublé. There he is. Let's not get hauled off of YouTube. That's enough. That is Sonya Tetley, who is with me as my guest today. That is Sonya Tetley's favorite Christmas song. Sonya, welcome to CBM Calling.
Glad to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sonya, you are the Ontario rep for CBM, and you are our liaison with our churches in the central part of the country. And you've been doing that job for how long now? How long have we known each other?
I've been full-time since May, so I jumped right in the height of the pandemic.
That's right. You are one of a couple of select people in our office that decided to join right when we went to shut down. So we are grateful today because you have been a contributor to Advent of Generosity, which has been a selection of our staff colleagues writing on the themes of Advent. And today we are going to talk a little bit about joy and what you have written for us about Advent, generosity, and joy. So I did play your favorite Christmas album your favorite Christmas song to get us going. But let me ask you about a couple of other maybe Christmas memories. Do you have a favorite moment you wanted to share with us? Tell us about what we're going to see on the screen here with these folks.
Probably my favorite Christmas moment would be at my grandparents' house. So my grandfather absolutely loved Christmas. So he would always wear the Santa hat. He'd be handing out the presents to everybody, and he would never open his till the end of the day. It was just his absolute joy to see the joy on our faces. But the one thing that stuck out to me the most about my grandfather was he wasn't just generous at Christmas, but he was generous all the time. So I have all kinds of memories of him coming to our home with, groceries when our family was struggling. And I know that he would do that to anybody that he knew. He would hear about neighbors in trouble or someone that had cancer, and he would be the first to kind of respond. So yeah, I have a real passion for generosity, and I believe that I inherited it from my grandfather.
Is your grandfather still around?
He passed away almost 19 years ago. My grandmother, she's still alive, and we've been doing Christmas when we were overseas. We didn't get back very often, but we usually have Christmas at her house for lunch.
Okay.
But unfortunately, this year is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be very different. We'll talk about how you're going to spend Christmas in a few minutes, but I asked you because I'm going to out myself because my kids just razz me to no end with the picture. I'm going to share a picture, but John's got a picture he's going to share. We both have memories of Santa pictures. This is a classic moment for any child of a certain age, getting your picture taken on Santa's knee. So I think John's going to bring up a picture of you. Hold that picture, John. Where was this taken?
This was taken in Newmarket, Ontario, in the Upper Canada Mall.
All right. And John, you can now switch over to my shot, since I will engage in this embarrassing moment. Yeah, my kids just ridicule me to no end. Look at those sleeves. Who dressed as their child like that? I don't know. Even Santa. Look at that face. That's ridiculous.
It was the era. It's okay.
It must have been. Yeah, it must have been. So thank you. Thank you. I've been trying to share one slightly embarrassing moment with each of the writers that have been on the show. So thanks for sending your mall photo with Santa. So let me ask you about this season and the season of waiting. And yeah, I mean, how have you experienced this? You said that you served overseas. Tell us a little bit about serving overseas and where you did that.
So my husband and I, we pastored an international church in Beijing, China, and we were there for over 13 years. So we got married, had our honeymoon, hopped on a plane and just started a brand new life there. And so we spent many Christmases in China. Often we couldn't come home, and so um, the waiting period for us was really opening our hearts to other people that were far from home. And so we learned to just open our home in generosity. So often, my home would become the center place of people, that singles, families, we had refugees, all kinds of people would come to our house for dinner. So on almost every single Christmas, I'd have about 30 people at my Christmas dinner table. I'd spend days cooking up a storm. But it was just so wonderful. We would have people from all over the world. So I think there's a picture on the screen. You'll see the diversity of the international community that would pass through Beijing. And so we had a lot of really, really rich Christmases.
Yeah, you mentioned, as you shared this picture with me, and you have refugees. Tell me, you have refugees in this picture from where in your
They were
home?
from Pakistan. So yeah, Beijing became an interesting place after the Olympics, because it was very easy to get a visa. There was many refugees that would pass through Beijing. So yeah, they often would end up at our church. So we had a great friendship and relationship with many of them.
In this picture, what would you have cooked? You're at the very far end. I don't even know if people can make that up, but I know you're at the very, very back of this picture at the head of the table. But with 30 plus people, what did you serve for dinner?
I would track down a turkey. So that was really hard to find in Beijing. And that was a big part of our budget. So actually, when I had Christmas money, I would spend my own Christmas money on the turkey to feed everybody. And that was just our treat. It was something that made us feel like we were still at home.
Mm.
And everybody that came to our home, they were just so excited, because to have that in China was something very unique. It was difficult to find.
How unique was that for your dinner guests?
For many of them, yeah, it was, especially if they were from a non-Western country. For some of them, that was their first time having it, and for those that were from a Western country, it just really made them feel like, oh, this is Christmas. We're at home.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful to have one of those anchors, even for you guys, just to have a bit of taste of Christmases gone by while serving in China. Now you have four kids. Were they all born in China?
Two of the four were born in China. So my second, we had a sabbatical, so we had him back here, and then my
Oh,
third
okay.
was in China, and we had my fourth 2 years ago. So we've been home 4.5 years now.
So they're still getting used to whatever Canadian Christmas might mean, as opposed to Chinese Christmas, right?
Yes. So yeah, this year, in some ways, it kind of reminds me of our Christmases in China because of the isolation. We can't really be with family like we normally would. And so, yeah, we're just really asking God for creative ways how we can reach out to people. So that was something that my kids have always been a part of our ministry. So we would really engage when we were in China. We would engage in generosity all throughout the Christmas season. We would do projects helping people that were in need. And you can see on one of these pictures, there's my daughter when she's just 3 years old, and she traveled with us to some remote area in China, and she was right there as we were serving the people that God had given us an opportunity to help.
Yeah, amazing. Wow. Wow. Well, let me ask you, we're here talking about Advent, and you have very generously contributed to our Advent reflections for this season. And we're coming into week 3. This Sunday will be Joy, week 3 of Advent, and you've written on joy. And I think John's going to bring up, oh, there we go. We've got the screen up. So if you're interested, if you haven't been following along, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we've been running the last few weeks on Tuesdays through our prayer line email that goes out every Tuesday. We've been sharing these reflections from each of our colleagues, and you're on this week for joy, as I mentioned. So if you can go back to the other screen there, Christine, see, yes. And if you could just scroll up, this is what it looks like if you go to cbmin.org/AOG. That's short for Advent of Generosity. You can find all the writers' reflections there, and this one specifically to Sonya. I love this painting that you have chose to go with your reflection here. Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at and how it connects to what people can hear from you.
So this week's reading that specifically was in the lectionary was about the baptism of of Jesus, that as he's preparing for Jesus' coming. And John is actually really just reflecting on who the Messiah is going to be and his role, and he's kind of sharing it with those that are bringing questions to him. And so when I was looking for a picture of baptism, this one came up, and it just really struck me because so many of historical pieces of artwork we see, the images or of the dove descending on Jesus or John lifting Jesus up from the waters of baptism. But what struck me about this artwork, it wasn't Jesus entering the baptism. You see his feet exiting the waters of baptism. And so it's kind of gives you this feeling of what comes next, that, so often we think of that moment, well, the moment was the baptism, but really the moment was what the call was next. And so as we're preparing in this season of Advent, we need to remember is what has God called us to next? What is the call that he has for us as a church and as his people? And so Jesus's ministry was just phenomenal, what he was able to do, how he shared the love of God and became our savior. But that picture just reminds us of that next piece. And so often at Christmas, as we're thinking about Jesus's arrival, it's so important to remember what God has as that next piece. And so in reflection of joy, what better time of the year to share that joy that God's given us than at Christmas? And so my hope in this reflection is that people will just, in this really, really difficult time, there's so many things that people are struggling with. There's challenges that people are facing, but we have that joy of Christ, and God wants us to share it with others. And so that is the hope that I have as people read the reflection this week.
Yeah, thank you. We used this earlier today. We have been using these reflections in chapel and sharing that with our staff today and looking at this picture together. Yeah, I find it, I wonder if that is the dove there into the bottom left-hand corner. There's so many things you could stare at this. I love the idea that there's him touching the ground and moving forward. It has so much less detail in it than the movement and the turbulence of the water he just came out of. There's a lot to sit with in this. So I think I'm going to ask John. He's going to play a little bit. If you have not had a chance to tune into this yet, John's going to play a little snippet of your reflection for us.
John the Baptist knew his one and only call was to prepare God's people for the coming Messiah. He chose a life of obscurity, living in the wilderness in isolation. He survived off the land and lived in utter simplicity. What drew people to this man? He didn't draw them with riches, power, and great earthly authority. In the eyes of common man, he seemed nothing more than a zealous hermit, and yet people were drawn to hear him teach and be baptized by him. What did he offer that led people to come into the wilderness to seek this baptism of repentance?
Get to check out in. Okay, thanks, John. Thank you. There's two parts, actually. There is your reflection that people can listen to, which I love. There's just a very subtle graphic in the background, and listening to your voice deliver your thoughts to us, I think is really lovely, as opposed to another talking head or another Zoom screen in front of us. And this artwork is so evocative. And then you can also respond with the reflection that you've written as the responsive reading. So there is assets for churches that we have made available, but I'm sure if your church has not been making use of these Advent materials, you're not about to jump in on week 3. But there are slides available for download for churches, and you can get all those assets right from our website if you just follow the links. And I think, Christine, you probably put the links in the show notes here at the end. So, Sonya, there's a couple of people we need to say hi to. Nancy Webb at my church at Kingsway Baptist. Woot woot. Shout out to Nancy. Hi,
Hello.
Nancy. Yeah,
Hi,
and
Nancy.
our colleague in Bolivia is tuned in. So hello to Patricia. Nice to see you. And as ever, Estella Ng is with us yet again, and she sends her blessings to you and your family, Sonya. Thanks, Stella.
So much.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? So let me ask you, what is it going to look like for Christmas this year with the family?
It'll be very different. My husband has a very big family. He comes from a family of 7 children. And so normally it's absolute chaos at my mother-in-law's house with 30 plus people,
Nice.
grandkids, 16 grandkids. So none of those big meetings are happening this year. But as I was sharing before, our family has really been praying how we can kind of impact those that maybe are lonely around us. You know, we recognize everyone in our neighborhood is in the same situation. They can't go to see family. They might be shut in alone. And so one thing that we've done the past week and a half is we've started a neighborhood Facebook group. So my husband and I have been posting flyers on people's doors, and within about a week and a half, we've got 50 plus people that have joined the group, and we're just trying to build online community. If there's somebody in need, somebody that, you know, that we could be there for one another and get to know each other. And so yeah, I would encourage everybody that's listening to ask God for creativity, how you can reach out in your isolation and make a difference and share that joy of Christmas with those around you.
Well, that is a testimony to the generosity of who you are. From pictures of serving people in China to going to remote places in China and with your kids and distributing those knapsacks that you showed us, and now even a Facebook group. Yeah, mission is right in your heart, Sonya. Well done. And thank you for giving us this gift, this reflection that people can check out, and I hope they do. So, thank you again for being on our little CBM Calling show. You've been on as a host in the past, not so much as a guest, but it's good to see you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, indeed. And next week, we're going to carry on into week 4. And Louise Hannum is going to be joining me. And we'll be talking about an Advent of generosity. And the theme will be love. So you can tune in at the same time next week on CBM Calling. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Bye for now. Bye, Sonya.